Simon.
Whoa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Welcome back. It's Podcast is Unleashed. It's our last show for this season. We will be back in 8 weeks' time. The date will be rolling across the screen shortly, won't it, Howler? And today we're going to talk about social class and how it shapes you. The reason I chose this subject was because my friend was debating about what class I am. I come from working class background, council estate, but I was fostered and adopted into middle class people. But does that make me middle class? But the jobs I do, argumentatively, are working class, even though I've done other jobs that are middle class. Or does a job define you? But all this and more we're going to be discussing about today, and the history and many more things. But before we get into that in great deepness, I've got to welcome our co-hosts. So starting with Howler.
Thank you, Simon. So I'm the host of the podcast, Women Stories Podcast. Tune in for a whole new season soon. We'll talk about really great stories from people who rose above different challenges. So stay tuned. Over to you, Victor.
Hi, I'm Victor So. I am the host of the Diaspora Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we speak to people of African and Caribbean descent who have successfully moved from the core 9 to 5 towards the lifestyle of freedom. Over to you, Matilda.
Hello, everyone. This is Matilda. I'm the host of Coffee with Matilda, A Journey to Self. And my podcast is about loving yourself, finding yourself, and coming out of adversity stronger than before. Over to you, Carla. No, Carla. Sorry.
I'm Carla, and I'm the host of the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast, which is a podcast that's all about well-being and education. Back to you, Simon.
Thanks. And I'm Simon, the host for today. And my two podcasts, the first one is Taxi Chronicles, where I interview people as they get into the taxi in my Uber, driving around London, and they just reveal all about their career, and basically what we call Share the Gift. And the other podcast is Africa Investor Stories, where people from around the world who've invested in Africa talk about what their experience was like. Would they do it again? Would they not do it again? The pros and cons, just allowing other people to hear the real side of what it's like to invest and live in Africa and the many diverse cultures. But thank you for that. So we're going to start off with Matilda. And Matilda, could you give us a brief history of social classes, please?
Well, we always had social classes from the ancient time. Egyptians created it. But, the modern way of thinking started in 18th century. A social class is a set of concepts of social science and political theory centered on the models of social situation, which occur in a class society, in which people are grouped into sets of social categories. The most common one is the upper, middle, and lower classes. Membership in social classes can, for example, depend on education, wealth, occupation, income, also belonging to a particular subcultural and social network. This is the summary.
Okay, thanks a lot. So starting with Victor, we know Nigeria has been colonized before, but you've had your history of your great tribes and you still have your tribes today. So tell us, how has social class changed since colonial times? Victor, sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for that question. I don't think there's a huge movement when it comes to changing the social class or the structure. It's just that maybe because of the age that I am right now, I'm becoming more aware of how people get into this social status in our tribe. I'm from Nigeria, as you know, from the Niger Delta. So as an Okpe man, how people get into this social structure. Mostly it is by maybe conquest, or how you've served the community in a very selfless way, or how financially, how financially influential you are within the community. How many people have you helped? How many people have you taken maybe from poverty, families, the less privileged in the society? How many have you actually given the leg up to, and you get recognized? So these class of people are called the chiefs. So, and they are given, this type of beads, but more grander ones for them to wear. And there's one that is, we call it the turntable. It's a nickname. We call it turntable, where it's kind of round. So these are what you used to know the higher ups in a traditional setting. So we have the kings, and a bit below the king we have the chiefs and the dukes who look after different regions. So moving forward, I think what is changing now because of what's called democracy. So much of the traditional powers are no longer, just like England. So many of the traditional powers are no longer really, really political because they don't have a defense, they don't have the government behind them. So I don't think it has changed a lot, but it's just that democracy came in and made everything to be like, gave them a kind of balance. That's what I would say, Simon.
Okay, thanks for that. Moving on. Howler, the impacts of the class system in North Africa, seeing as you're from that region of the world, how has that been? Especially when you take in consideration the founding of oil. Which
I just want to back up what Victor said, because even if the democracy came in some countries, but colonial countries came back as form of investors and as form of upper class who wants to invest in this kind of countries and to take their natural resources to invest in it and to create jobs in those countries, for example, in Africa. So, for example, we can take a country, for example, Algeria. They produce petroleum, natural gas. All these resources go to other countries, and mainly France, where you have a lot of inequalities in the country itself, that they don't benefit in their natural resources. And this kind of modern colony that happened in a lot of African countries creates that inequalities in the social class. So you see, for example, the upper class and the elite in Western countries are getting more and more and more continuous wealth, and you have the lower class that will never go forward because actually the colony and the slavery never ends. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Okay, that's interesting. But from the tribes to what we have to what you have today, is there a big similarity? Shall I rephrase that question? From the tribal history that you had, where you had the hierarchy, to what you have today.
Yeah.
The fact that obviously oil is a big natural resources amongst everything, even you're providing England solar panel. So is there a big difference, would you say?
I don't think that if I understand your question, but I don't think that the social structure has changed a lot since the ancient Egyptian model, because they are the ones who shaped that social structure of the hierarchy structure. And I just feel that social structure is actually existed in every country. I don't think that it has changed. Especially if you're talking about the African country, it does not change. You always have the upper class, middle class, lower class, and you always have the elite who control and made an impact on the wealth of the other classes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Simon, just let me just jump in there. I think in Nigeria, for example, because of the military era and now democracy, so many when you talk about oil in my region, we have lots of them. So when you talk about oil, because these people have been displaced the social, what's it called, the traditional class, ruling class has been displaced. So now the impact of them having within their community is no longer there. So they don't have that strong hold of their people when it comes to maybe development and kind of what I say.
Okay. Well, that brings us on to Carla. You're born and bred in England or Scotland, England, United Kingdom. How has, from your experience living in the United Kingdom and Qatar, how has the social class been affected when it comes to the input of modern technology?
Wow, I think is a big change. And I think the biggest impact is in what we call social capital. So social capital, as Howler was saying, these different levels in society have existed for a long time. And despite some movements, attempts to remove, get them out of the way and make everybody equal, it's failed. It's never been possible to do it. And the concept of social capital is that you acquire it through repeated interactions with individuals and groups of individuals. So, for example, in a society without technology, your social capital is determined by who your family mixes with on a regular basis socially. So who you have dinner with, who you worship with, who you support in the community, all of that kind of stuff. But it was all face-to-face and physical. But now with technology, the way that you get social capital has changed. So you don't get it just from who you physically interact with, you get it from who you interact with online. And that's changed things massively in countries like Qatar and, the Gulf countries who saw this massive change in wealth. And that wealth has given them access to new social opportunities or new communities where they can interact. And there's lots of online interacting as a result of their, increasing income. Most of the people there are now able to afford smartphones, computers, internet connection. In fact, many more people there in certain groups have access to the internet than countries that perhaps saw much more of a thriving social environment and more social opportunities, like the US, for example. Now we're seeing like an economic shift in some of the advanced countries like here in the UK, with the increase in gas prices, for example. Lots of families may no longer have the internet. And we saw that during the pandemic, where who had access to the internet had access to education, which was a massive issue globally. Because also, even if you had internet in your home, if you didn't have a laptop and it was just the internet was used just to stream TV shows or just to use a mobile phone for your parents or you to use mobile phones, without a laptop, you weren't able to log on to school. And if your parents wanted you to have access to school, they had to have the money to quickly go out and buy you a laptop. Whereas countries like Qatar, where I was before, it wasn't a problem because the social capital plus the economic capital meant that people were able to access laptops much quicker and easier than, say, in some Western countries. So technology's had a massive impact on who is now at the top of the social strata, i.e. has more social capital, has internet connection, is able to interact globally, is able to buy, sell, trade, and take part in democratic systems and all of that kind of stuff. Also, who can access things like influence, who can influence others, but also who can be influenced has also changed in countries around the world as a result of technology, which is having a massive impact on which social group people belong to and how much social mobility they have as a result of their social capital. So it is changing the world a lot, technology. And I think it's going to keep doing that with things like the metaverse and cryptocurrencies and things like that. It's really only people who have consistent, good access to the internet, but also the money to maintain that and to buy the equipment that will benefit going forward.
You're muted, Simon.
Excuse me, everybody. I just see that George has joined us, so welcome back, George. For the audience out there, the question is of today: does your social class matter to you, and why? And that's one of the first many questions that will come across the screen. My next question goes out to all of you, and it is: what social class do you consider yourself, and why? And we shall start with the lovely Howler.
Thank you, Simon. Actually, I've never thought about this question. I was in different social classes, to be honest, um, because of my father work as a diplomat. So we had that social class to be around diplomats. And then when I graduated from high school and I needed to be on my own, my social class just changed. I no longer have those privileges and be with that same environment. So I get to know more people from different areas, and also travel in different countries. I've never someone told me not talk to that person because they are less than you. I was always talking to different people just to learn. And for me, I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think that I'm super rich. I don't think that I have the superpower, but I don't think that I'm in a lower social class. I'm someone who has a growth mindset. So I think someone who has a growth mindset and sees opportunities is someone who has a good social class. Um, Maybe that answer your question.
Okay. I have to ask you one more question in relation to what you said your father does. The fact that you said if things changed when you went to a high school on your own, was it because you financed your backing from your father, or was it just the company you chose to keep, or was it something else?
Well, actually, after finishing high school, so I had limited finances from parents, so I needed to think about a lot of things. Think about the housing, things about how to pay my bills at the age of 17, 18. Think how to manage everything in France, in a new country that has nothing to do with the Arab countries and the Middle East. So I became independent really in an early stage of my life, and that privilege that seeking help from someone or someone do the service for you, or you can just give money to someone so he can do the service for you, is no longer existed, and it does not exist in France. I think this kind of services you could get from the higher society in France, the elite. But someone, if you want something, you need to get it by your own. So this is what has changed for me when I just lived on my own in France. That everything that I need to do in my own, the services actually has changed because in the Middle East, for example, you have people who have power. They have also authority over some people, and you can get a lot of things done quickly. Where we no longer have this kind of authorities, no longer have this kind of services in Western countries, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna, Carla, if you can read out the comments, and then after that, I just want you to give us a brief rundown of the different kind of classes that we have in our society today in England.
Okay, so we've got some welcome and some hi messages here from George. Welcome back, George. It's nice to have you with us again. And we've also got Dr. Akram Imar. He says here, I think that the aim of this episode is more significant than determining the components of social classes and defining the specifications of each layer as defined by sociologists and specialists, ? Well, yes and no, Dr. Akram. Stay tuned and see what the outcome of the show is. It's a bit more than that. Also, question, are you satisfied with the social class you belong to according to the criteria used for social classes, and why? Very, very interesting question there from Dr. Akram. Back to you, Simon.
Okay, so Matilda, if you can answer that question, Dr. Akram has put up there, but in the meanwhile, Carla, if you can give us a rundown of just the different types of classes, like obviously working class, etc.
Yeah, okay. So in the UK, you have the upper class, which is usually the people who have intergenerational wealth and probably don't need to work for their money. They operate at the highest level of society. You're talking about the royals. You're talking about people who probably have not seen a paycheck in a long time, but have got very high bank balances. And they've achieved that through many different means. Some of them have invested heavily in past in their families. Some of them have inherited money, or a combination of both. And then you have what we call the middle classes or the working class, which is a shrinking group. And those are people that belong to higher professions. Usually those professions either serve society as a whole, i.e. politicians, for example, and or they are professionals like doctors, lawyers, your higher end, what we used to call white collar professions. And at the lower end of that, sometimes termed as the working class, so you have what we used to call blue collar professions, which are those who serve society on a wider scale, teachers, people who work in maybe semi-professional or unprofessional, but the boundaries are a bit blurred there. Middle class used to include everybody who had a professional job or a degree position, but now it's more related to economic situation as well. So people on lower incomes can be bordering in between the different levels. So that middle class is a bit of a blurred boundary. A lot of those people now belong to lower class, which means they're on low incomes, whether those low incomes are from jobs or from being unemployed and having to rely on money from the government. The boundary there is a bit blurred, but in general, it would be lower, middle and upper class that would have been the distinction here in the UK. Back to you.
Thank you for that. Matilda, you ready?
Dr. Akram, my question would be, for me, I'm very satisfied. I'm very happy with my social class and I don't want to change it. No, actually, it can be interesting to change because you get different perspective of life. I think if you want to be a well-rounded human being, it's nice to live and feel it on your skin, all the stages of classes, because it's different that you read about people with these kind of privileges or not privileges, but it's different when you feel it on your skin and you take different decisions in your life that can make you a better human. So I'm happy with who I am and where I'm standing in life right now. But why not to go up? And I'm sure life will take me down one day and I will experience the downside as well too. And that's fine as well. In every stage or every class, there's a wealth that comes with the experience of it that you can learn. So life, I'm on it. Bring it on.
Yeah, Simon, let me just jump into that a little bit. Dr. Akram, yes, I'm okay, but I'm not satisfied. I think like most of us here, we have this growth mindset because we know that we can actually grow. And to me, I wouldn't say changing my class is really a priority for me, but just going according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If I can just keep improving myself and I go to the next level, I know the basic things, the psychological things are no longer, a body, not a trouble to me. I can take care of my family, my house, now belongings. But what we're actually doing here is having conversation about all these kind of things. That makes us to be on a different class from the normal working or the normal from a normal everyday conversation or a normal everyday hustle. So are we coming here now? I think we're almost at the top of the ladder, whereby we're talking about world events, talking about solutions to problems of humanity. So this is the kind of level that I would like to continuously pursue, not necessarily changing my class. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but that's what I need to answer that.
And that same question I'm going to ask for Matilda. Well, I'm going to throw it to Matilda, Howler, and Victor, because we're talking about class, but obviously you all have migrated to different countries. Have you found that your class is different in different countries? And why do you think that is? And I'm still yet to hear what class people actually put themselves in. I haven't heard from anybody yet. So starting with Matilda.
Of course, I came to America at age of 17, 18 as an immigrant alone. And obviously, I didn't have a lot of privilege that some American students will have, starting with the language, starting that, oh, I don't have friends, I don't know my ways around it, and I don't know the system. But there's a lot of, and you know what? The immigrants study harder and they achieve more than Americans for such a funny reason, because you have that you are living on your tiptoes, you don't have a room to fail, and also you don't have a room to do wrong things. I remember my classmates, they would go drink, drive fast, yada yada yada, and I would like, my parents have one child and I'm very away, and if something happens, I'm in the hospital, there's no one to come take care of me, I need to take care of me. So you grow older faster, and you take certain responsibility that maybe when you live with your parents or in the city that you are grown up, you don't have these kind of difficulties. But I love it. If I have a child, I would say, yalla, 17, 18, go, because sometimes you sleep in people's kitchen, but then you learn. At 18, you are flexible, you bounce back. You don't want to be 30 and then like, oh, what should I do with life? No, 18 out, and then experience different classes, poor, middle class, why not high class, elite. The door is open.
But what class would you actually define yourself now?
I can say myself middle class. Yeah,
Okay.
comfortable middle class.
And were you middle class in America?
Yeah,
And you were middle class?
I've been well, in Iran I was in higher class, because I can say I was part of the elite in a way because of my family structure. But when I moved to America, I was a poor student, immigrant student. So I was in the lower end. But I worked. I worked in New York. I had days that I didn't have any money, but then at the end, I was working very hard and making very good money for me. So yeah, middle class.
Before I jump onto Howler, I just want to ask Carla, you've obviously left England and United Kingdom and you went to Qatar. Did you find that your position and your standard had changed?
Yeah, definitely. The way that you're viewed there is more based on contribution to the society. So, for example, if you come from the UK and you're qualified, you have your degree and you're a professional person, skilled, and can contribute to that country, when you go there, you are, depending on the organization you work for. I worked for a very good organization that was very good at recognizing people's ability to contribute. And you can go from being a poor, low-class person in the UK, but as a result of your education, your experience, and what you can contribute in that country, you can go to middle and upper class. It depends on the organization. And that includes the income that they give you, and includes the status, the professional status, and the way that you're treated in the society. So I experienced that. I experienced having to prove myself, and I'm back in that position now, living in the UK. You have to start from the bottom. When you change career, it doesn't matter what experience, you have to start from the bottom. And that's definitely true if you come from any kind of marginalized, what they call marginalized group, whether that's because of your color or your economic background. Here in the UK, you have to prove that you're worthy, even if you're an educated person. You have to start your own business and again go out there and recruit your own clients and all of that. But you have to prove to people, especially people who have prejudice and who adhere very strict to standards of class. So I don't fit the box of upper class because I don't come from a wealthy family. I'm not from a white background, and I don't have the social standing of the upper class. So even if I could contribute something there, I would have to prove myself. Whereas in Qatar, where I was working, if you come with qualifications, you work and you contribute to the society in a way that meets their needs, then they will reward you accordingly, which is two very different ways. of looking at that. But I think a lot of that has to do with things like religion, which I know we're going to talk about later.
Okay. Got some comments. So we just read out the comments and then we're over to Victor.
Yeah. Dr. Akram Imar says many factors override these social divisions, such as an individual's environment. We must not ignore that, such as work, study, or housing environment. And he also says, where we find harmony and the strength of social relations, eliminate economic differences and the rest of the classification criteria.
Mm-hmm. Before we go over to Victor, I'd just like to give a shout out to George and Dr. Akram and just say we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear what class you class yourself as and why. And you feel free to share any experiences on the chat of where you are today. Back to you, Victor. We're interested to hear how has traveling and your class changed you, and what class do you think you are?
Depends on where I am. You know, if I'm in the UK right now, just like Carla just give it spot on. See, you have to come and start from the bottom, regardless. So if you're an immigrant, you need to come. It doesn't matter. But if you're coming with value, even though you're coming with value as a doctor or as a top surgeon, lawyer, so long when you change, then you come down. Your social status comes down in the United Kingdom, regardless, because it is already capped. The big boys, or how is it called? The
elite?
No, it's not the elite. There's a name that is being called. I can't remember the name now. The big boys in London. It's a big boys club. They've already capped it. There's no way coming in, except you need to go and create your own somewhere else. But when you're coming into London, you're going down, because they're very, very particular about who they let in. But if I go to Nigeria, okay, in the UK, I'll classify myself as a middle class. If I go to Nigeria, I would say I'm an upper middle class. Again, I won't say I'm on the upper class, but I would say I'm an upper middle class. So take it like this, Simon. When my dad passed away a long time ago, when he was still alive, my brothers came to the UK to study, to do all their degrees. Their school fees were being paid from back home. They didn't have to work for nothing. So even here, being students, they were still like hanging out because they went to good schools. They were hanging out with the supposed cream, the crop, and their school fees were paid. Their houses were paid, pocket money, so they did not work for anything. But when I came, God bless his soul, I had to work for every single, bottom of the barrel again and try to find your way out. So that is just how it is. When you are there, you're living the life, having made two house helps, and you come to England, you come into a box, and you start doing your own dishes. So,
didn't you say your dad, why you're not paying for me, you're paying for the others?
He passed away.
Say that.
He died, Matilda.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But if he wasn't, he would pay for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was the point, Matilda. His father passed away, and he, being in the middle of the children, number 25, he didn't get his things paid for. That means 26 other children didn't get their fees paid for either.
Yeah.
But the first 24 did.
25th is the worst number.
Well, you wouldn't know. Maybe it might be the luckiest number. You can
Moral of the story, don't be 25th. You want to be the 1, you want to be the 10, but not 25th.
Okay. So we got a quick comment coming in, Carla.
Jamar's with us. Nice to have you with us, Jamar. And Jamar says, and the point of classism is...
And we would turn that back to you, Jamar. Nice to see you. What do you feel the point of classism is, because I'm sure in the Jehovah's Witness Society they have a hierarchy system, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Howler, the last on that matter there, what class do you classify yourself as and why?
Yes, actually, because I've never asked myself that question. It depends on the country that I'm in. Now, as an independent working and traveling and living solo, I consider myself as a middle class in France. And I have the same experience actually as Matilda. I came here at the age of 17, 18, and I needed to start from the beginning. New language, new system, new everything. And it's different than the UK because here there is a pressure on people who come from North Africa. And also they need to be very high qualified, otherwise they will you will be marginalized and you will be like with the bad people who comes to from North Africa. They don't do anything and they just wanted to benefit from the system. So we had, like, I had a lot of pressure to exceed the limit and to exceed the expectation and to work really, really hard for the past 10 years. It was not easy to pass those kind of judgments that are constantly around people who come from Africa, an example. So yeah, I am now confident that I have exceeded my expectation actually, and I learn every day. So I think the social class depends on your mindset too. It's part of your mindset. When you have a growth mindset, you can see new opportunities and you know where to network and how to help people who are in need and how to pick the good opportunities from the wrong one, and also the surroundings too.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. When you look at somebody, we're all a bit judgmental, if not some more than others. How do you determine what class they are? And why I ask you this, and I ask this to the audience as well, is because depending on how you see them is usually how you approach them. And I'll give you an example. If I see another black person, I may use the term brother, sister. In England, in Africa, obviously there's different tribal terms or for different cultures, but there's also, if I'm talking to an elder in Jamaican heritage, I would say Jamaican culture, I say mum or pups, father kind of thing. But I know with the African, many cultures you call them uncle or auntie. So straight away you're showing them subservience and respect. And then you know how to conduct yourself. So what I'm interested in is, how do you determine someone's class? Starting with Matilda.
I'm not understanding the class related was to age. I mean, the example that you gave, or the skin color, because
no, but that's the beauty of it.
relation.
We all determine class by our own measures. And I would argue there's no right or wrong. It's like,
I think, in my opinion, I don't like, and I never do, to associate myself with people who are rude and don't have the courtesy of others. I can't handle that. For me, they're loud and obnoxious, and I can't. Doesn't matter what color they are, what nationality they are, they have money, they don't have money. It's just not, I'm not interested. But I like people who are polite, who are respectful of others, who have that humbleness. I can't handle arrogant people. And when I see an arrogant human being, I feel like they're lower than lower than lower.
so
Because a human being that has more to offer, this is a Persian poetry. It says a human being that has a lot to offer is like a tree that has fruit. So it's always, the leaves are always to the ground. But a tree that doesn't have any fruits, the leaves are to the sky. So it's the same human beings that doesn't have anything to offer. The nose is up. But when you're humble, That means you're loving other people, you're connecting with other people, you care about others. Then you're humble.
So what I'm getting from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your class, where you see someone in their class, is depending on their manners.
Yes.
Fair enough. That's interesting. I haven't heard that before, but I like that. Carla, we got some comments. You read them out, please, and then we'll jump to you on that question we just asked Matilda.
Yeah, Dr. Akram Imar says, according to the approved ratings, I am middle class, but I believe that multilingualism in social stratification promotes awareness of different cultures and an international mentality. And he also says this leads to engaging in interpersonal relationships regardless of colour, gender, or class. I think that's also related to what Matilda was saying there. Repeat the question again. I've got the general idea, but what was the exact?
How do you determine somebody's class when you're coming to have a conversation with them?
I don't care. I don't care. I'm so old and I've seen enough now, and I've moved about enough. My experience in Qatar taught me a lot about the mistakes that we make in the Western world with judging. And I like the fact that Dr. Akram mentioned there about language, because there is this thing in the world where if you speak English, for some people that makes you classy. But they have no idea what it's like to live and grow up in England, where we have lots of people from lots of different backgrounds who speak English. In fact, we have some people who speak very well in England and they have no class. They have no manners, as Matilda said. They have no way of treating other people. And they have delusions around their own value as a human being. And they base it on silly things such as where they were born, how much money they have, what language they speak. I've seen people speak to others in a condescending way because the people don't speak English. And I've seen them attribute the lack of education to the lack of English, which is bizarre. Matilda was just quoting, poetry from other languages. Other languages have beautiful poetry, beautiful literature, beautiful history. It's often dismissed and wiped away as not having any value just because it's not translated into English or it's not presented by an English person. So for me, I don't care what class you belong to. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care where you went to school, how educated you think you are. Really, it's about your value as a human being. So I don't even look at people's class at all.
Well, that leads on to the next question, which I'll throw to Victor and Howler. Should social class matter?
That's a that's a powerful one. I think.
So I know in Nigeria you have a saying, "You're not my mate." You're not my mate.
Yeah. For those with experience in a particular field, should be accorded that reverence, that respect. So whether in age or you've been serving for a long time, you've mastered something. Yeah, I believe yes, it should. But should it determine life or death situation? No, I don't think so. We get.
Then I would ask you, then what's the purpose of social class then?
I wouldn't know. You should ask the Egyptians, but I think it's to give some people some kind of recognition. I think why it was created was to give certain type of achievements some recognition for what they've contributed to the society, what they've done. So I think that should be. But you know what, Simon? I think when the previous question you asked was, I think I have some. What was the question? The last question you asked.
It's about what makes you. How do you determine someone's class?
Yeah. Okay. According to there's a Harvard study, 1956 or 1976, when about how long it takes for you to like someone or make up your mind, make a decision. It takes 2 seconds to 2 minutes. So, and the first thing you see when you see someone, for God's sake, it is physical. When you see someone looking so good, well taken care of, you associate that person, you give them a higher level. So 56% of the time, we identify, first of all, we like someone who has good physical appearance, regardless of the content to start with. Content is right at the bottom. So until what did Les Brown says, keep your mouth shut, because when you open your mouth, people know who you are. So, but when you come in with your own physique, come with your swag, but immediately you open your content, boom, people like Martina will run away. So that is so sometimes just keep your mouth shut. Then Martina likes to have coffee, goes to a fine restaurant and he sees some guy from the other side. Oh, she and Sasha will be like, oh yeah, that guy looks okay, this, that. But when the guy starts being rude to the waitress or the person serving, then Matilda will just turn her head and just like, that guy is bottom of the food chain. But first thing first, your appearance, boom, takes you up to start with. You see, and even in China, you see the Chinese girls or the Chinese ladies now, they associate Western eyes, so they started doing eye surgeries to open the eyes to be more Western instead of having the God-given beautiful eyes that they've got. So when they do the surgery and they go out, you associate them with being more Western, and their social class, their perceived social class increases. You get? That's the problem with African black ladies as well. When they have to start bleaching their skin, tends towards the West, and you associate them with more, higher class. So that is. So when you mentioned that question, I said no, I have to put this in. So you take your time. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'll just tell you a short brief.
They bleach themselves?
Yes, they bleach.
Yeah.
Sadly, they do.
Are they out of their mind? I mean, they're harming their skin to be.
Yeah, but if you think of it, the reverse, what do white people do? They have suntan was it that lotion that makes them look brown or golden? Like Donald Trump uses it. That's where he
bronzing. Yeah, the bronzing thing.
Yeah. You see what I mean? But
bleach is dangerous. I don't.
Just a brief history lesson. Class system originally derives from where you had everybody's hunter-gatherers, and if you've got somebody who's strong and can protect you, then you're going to give them the best meals. You're going to give them what's the word? Pilgrimage. There's a word, so I can't remember the word, but that's where it derives from. And then from that, it builds up and builds up as technology and innovation comes along. You get different levels, but originally it's as if I can protect you and you can't protect yourself. You will want to make sure I'm looked after and I get the best of everything. Do you see what I mean? And that's where it really derives from. We've got some comments.
Like the lion in the animal kingdom.
Yeah, see the lion, that's a perfect example, Matilda. The lion just sits down and chills. His women go and get the meat, and then he comes out and goes, where's the dinner? And they all run off. And then he eats, and then they come back and then they eat. They did all the work. But when another big lion comes, they're like, your turn, baby. Go and find his ass.
But why you go to animals? We have people like the royal family. It's the same as lions.
Yeah, prime example. Okay, and that's probably combined with tradition. But Carla, over to you with these comments.
Yeah, Jamar Stokely says, I've observed the rich and elite suffering depression, anxiety with many conflicts in their home. I've observed the lower class be joyful with productive children and vice versa. Clash, ? And K ? So I think he's just saying that there's, a mixture in all different classes of different types of people. Character isn't based on class. And he also adds to that and says, like a rebel in school, skip class.
Okay. What does your religious belief say about class? And this is to Victor and Howla and Carla. Starting with Howla.
Yes, so I do believe that God created us equal in the beginning, but I think that's kind of shaping the social structures comes from the creation of human being. Humans want to have more power on others, more authority, and having more privilege. Like if I bring back the idea of the ancient Egyptian, you have the pharaohs in the beginning, that he is the high level of the pyramid, and then you have the government, and then you have the doctors, and then you have the slave at the end. So you have different kind of social structures that the actually human beings created this kind of social structures, and I don't think any religion will promote that kind of hierarchy, or give people that insight that people need to follow other people. We need to follow God, but not human being on earth.
Do you know what Islam exactly says about it?
Yes, actually, because Islam abolished slavery for many, many, many years. And also, we have in the primary basics of Islam, the principle of Islam, if someone is rich, they need to give annual 25% of their income to the poor people. This is a mandatory thing to do for every Muslim. So imagine if people do that, we won't have a lot of inequalities. But unfortunately, not all the Arab countries apply those principles.
So when you say give it to the poor, they don't mean the mosque. They actually mean go onto the street, find poor people, feed them, clothe them, help them out.
Yes.
Very good.
You don't have to go to institution. You pick the association or people that you want to help.
Okay, fair enough. Victor, your belief system, and what does it say about social classes?
I think it's a funny one. I think it was in the Bible, from the poor. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. So, it's there in the Bible. There will always be class. So it is believed that people that work in the fields, people that are, the beggars will be there. So I think it was created by. I don't know if God created it, but they said what God did not create does not exist. So
That's
I
a very
think-
interesting point there. What you're
Yeah.
saying, I never looked at it that way. What
Yeah.
you're saying is God speaks of poor and rich, which in essence is class.
Yeah. So it is
But
class.
not in Matilda's standard. Matilda points out that class is based on manners, which I really like.
Yeah, there are people with despicable manners, but they are still the king or the queen. So they're still the dukes, and they're still your mayors, presidents, and you can't take their class away from them because you don't like the way they present themselves. But to them, it's a God-given. If you go, I think if you investigate most royals, you'll find out that if you check under the hood, so many of them will not fit you won't be able to tick all the boxes for them to qualify as upper class. But there they are. Their great grandfather did that for them. So what can you do?
Okay. We've got some comments rolling in, Carla.
Yes, we have. Sasha Serge Pekarian says people just need references. We'd love you to elaborate a little bit on that, Sasha. Let us know what you mean by that. Also, Dr. Akram Imar says, from the perspective of Islam, there is no recognition of social classes according to established standards. Instead, Islam recognizes the concept of degrees amongst all human beings. So it repeatedly calls for equality between people regardless of beliefs, color, or race. And Sasha Serge-Pekarian adds and says social classes analysis sounds like Marxist references.
Okay. Where Sasha said about the degrees of all human beings, I'm quite interested for him to expand on that comment, if you can, please, Sasha. Moving along, we've got your Matilda with the metaverse. And will there be class system in the metaverse? Matilda's a lover of the metaverse, by the way.
I think, it's something very fascinating that I love about metaverse is people which we didn't mention it in our conversation today, but I think people who have physical limitation, they're paralyzed, they put in a different social class sometimes, and it's not fair, but we do as regular people do it. I think metaverse will help them to feel normal in how we understand normal physical activities of a human being. So it can be very nice. Imagine you're a paralyzed person, but you can choose your avatar according to what you like. So I think metaverse can help you to even change your gender if you think you like the other gender, or sometimes age as well. Maybe you're 60, but you feel like you want to be 20 again. That can be nice. And you can hang out if you are early to the game. I think you have the opportunity to hang out with the big shots and establish yourself in the metaverse world. Is it good or bad? I don't know, but I think metaverse can give you metaverse and DeFi, decentralized finance, I think gives you this opportunity that you don't want government and the big shots control your money and your finances. You start kind of controlling and having an opportunity to better your finances in a way if you obviously manage it well. So I like that. Banks are off for now, at least.
But
Okay.
Simon, I think there'll still be classes in there. Like what Matilda said, if you get there on time, and say you get on time and you buy the whole what's it called? The whole real estate, or you buy the whole land in London, automatically you are. And you start selling those lands in the metaverse, automatically you are the upper class.
And what's the interesting part and the funny part? I think soon, like people in their 60s or in their late 50s, maybe they don't even understand the concept of metaverse that much. Then maybe someone in 16 and 17 that they're already in the game of metaverse. I think soon these very young teenagers will have upper hand to the older generation. Maybe they are upper middle class, but then I don't think in metaverse they're gonna have chance. So age has a very big upper hand in this case. Younger and in the system can benefit you.
Okay.
Sorry, old people. Sorry, middle-aged people. Sorry.
The last question which goes out to you. What has been the pros and cons regarding your class and yourself in the societies that you've lived in this planet? Starting with Carla.
I don't think there are any benefits, to be honest, of class distinctions from my experience, because a lot of it's wrong, because it's based on human wisdom. And anything that's based on the human knowledge and the way that they manipulate things. I think one of the things that we brought up earlier when we were talking about religion, I think it's important to point out the difference between class distinctions and things like hierarchy and authority. I think hierarchy and authority are God-given order systems. They are systems that exist in the universe, that they're part of the creation, and we can see it in nature. And I think sometimes humans have manipulated that to create things like class in society. It's supposed to be based on, hierarchy, order, authority, but it becomes manipulated for power, which I think Matilda and Howler mentioned a little bit earlier. And I think that's the problem, where this class distinction is used for power, either to grasp power or to maintain and manipulate power. It just becomes a negative in society, and there are really no long-term benefits for anyone. And most of the benefits that people do think are there tend to be based on economics. It's how much money you get and how much privilege is attached to that money. but actually long term, it doesn't really benefit anyone, because we come into this earth with nothing and we leave with nothing financially. We may pass it on to our relatives, but we're not really in control of it after that. So I don't think that there are many benefits to it. I think a lot of it is downsides. There are more negative impacts from human class systems, and the manipulation of those systems. So even if naturally you're born with nothing, if a society is running according to natural God-given order, you should be able to climb, you should be able to move through things like hard work, through character. But quite often the hardworking and people with good character are still poor because of manipulation in the system, and because of abuses of power. So I think that those are, that's the more dominant thing. That seems to be what comes to the forefront more than advantage. The advantages are mainly illusion, and maybe feed into human vanity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Matilda, I know you had something to say along with answering the question.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have social classes. Imagine, let's look at the countries that had communism. What happened to them? Was it good? Was it benefiting the humankind? There are lots of problems coming in. I think humans cannot have not have a social class because it's important. We need to, even if you look at it, a class with all of them in the same level, it's nice to have some kind of a competition between the classroom. It gives the students to kind of try to do better and better. I think if we don't have that kind of a competition in a system, we'll die. The motivation will die. Different class system makes people to try harder to get better. As I was saying, in America, when I arrived as an immigrant student, I worked very hard, and I was a better student than an American next to me. And for me, it's like, that, are you crazy? My English is a problem. I have to work twice or three times more. But there was a motivation in me because I had to make it. I don't think. I think it's nice, the class system, and teaching the child this ambition that you can go anywhere in any class that you want. You have all these wings. You have to fly. I think more than anything, we need to teach our children the desire to dream and work hard for their dreams. I think that's more than any social class.
I think I lean towards that, Matilda, and I agree with you, because people in a society that has same economic bracket tend to come together. People with the same interests tend to come together. So whether you like it or not, what I always find is level. So people always come together. What attracts them? So that forms. If five of us now wants to say, you know what, we need to create a better podcasting system, or a better way people have to make debates and conversation. We're already setting a class already that people will definitely find a way to get to that level and remain on that level. So, but maybe because we're looking at it in a very, I don't know, in a very broad one lump, and the media in the past how many months has not done any justice, because we see people of the upper class taking some certain decisions which are not really for the beneficial of humanity. But I would say yes, I'm up for upper class, and there's so many benefits. Rich people have done, should I say rich or wealthy people, or upper class people have done so much good for this world than poor people have.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to read out the comments now, and then we're going to go to you, Hala. Carla?
Sasha says, in a society, people need references, and the concept of social classes is more a reference for, what's that number there? Who's good with Roman numerals? I'm not good with Roman numerals there.
No one.
Sasha. Sorry, Sasha. So,
you don't have that class.
Yeah, I'm not that educated, unfortunately. So I wonder what century vision. Sasha, can you explain a bit more? So even so, if everywhere you have this kind of references, like in India with the caste systems, or in history in Europe, you have also clear references about your place in
19.
society. Did
19,
he
I
want
think
to?
it's 19th century, because X is 10, 1X is 9. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So 19th century. Let us know if we're right there, Sasha. Also, humans need structures in society, so they need to know their place in the group. Dr. Akram says going beyond the imaginary boundary between classes is achieved through what Carla is referring to. And Sasha says the approach about classes is not limited to function. It could also be related to money. So it depends on the society references. Dr. Akram Imar says where it begins with not paying attention to the social class of the individual opposite you as much paying attention to his mentality and acceptance of others. And Jamar Stokely says impartiality repeated in scripture and is attached to the two greatest commandments regarding love. The one who serves God is acceptable to him from any nation, tribe, tongue. And that's in contrast to class. And Aida Galiban says, hi from Iran. Hi, Aida. Nice to have you back with us. And George is giving us a wave and a thumbs up there. I think George is enjoying the show.
Okay, that's good.
Wait, Simon, just one response to what Jamal said, one of Jamal's earlier statement about comment about he has observed the rich and co getting depressed, and see it works both ways. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, depression is depression, anxiety is anxiety. So it doesn't matter how it doesn't matter how much you have in the bank. Depression.
But listen, it's better to have depression with money. At least you can go to the therapist. Imagine you have depression and you don't have money. Come on. That's very depressing.
Yeah, very depressing.
I like to, if I'm getting a depression, at least I want to have money. I can go to the restaurant, enjoy my wine, nice food, my therapist, vacation.
But the argument would be, Matilda, if you're depressed, either way, money or no money, you're not going to be happy about it.
But at least I have tools to make myself better. I can go to therapists. Therapists are expensive, honey.
Okay. So how?
Sometimes the therapist is depressed. Sometimes the therapist needs help. And you pay your money and you come back worse than you were when you went before you went.
Funny enough, I saw a post like that the other day on the social media streets about when you start going to therapy, you never actually leave.
Yeah,
addiction.
Yeah, you still, because they're trained to keep you on retainer, and you keep going back and going back and going back. So
okay, so Howla, pros and cons regarding class system in your everyday life. Have you experienced any pros and cons? Because I have.
Yes, actually. For example, in different countries in the Middle East, we have different dialects. And sometimes, for example, if you are Arab from other country and you come here and you talk with an accent, with a different dialect, they say, oh, well, you're not from here. So let's try to take from her money because I think she's rich. And so they have this kind of look over foreigners that they can get money from them more and more and more. I think this is the pros of being an upper social class in in some countries like Egypt. I think this kind of thing I don't like, actually. And I share the same views as Matilda, because when she talked about being immigrant and going to United States, I had the same thing in France, where I need to work really hard, more than all the other students to prove myself and to have that social class, and to go to the companies that were the high corporate companies, and to prove that I arrived. So I had the same vision as Matilda, but I think that does not define your degree or your social class. And I think the more I sit down with myself and I see different people from those areas, from the upper social class or from the lower social class, I just come back to the religion and the principle of it, because as Dr. Akram mentioned about there is a difference between the degrees on people in Islam. It's because the social class in Islam does not exist, and it exists the degrees, those who have like morality and pity over others. So that's how you differentiate different people. It depends on their morality and how they treat others. That's how they have in different degrees. But in Islamic teaching, there is no privilege or chosen classes.
I would ask you, is that this ideally how it is? Because reality is probably somewhat different, where everybody is human and does
Exactly, Simon.
But Carla, if you could,
on the scriptures, Simon, sorry, on the scriptures, the Bible, God says, the Bible says God created everyone equal in the scriptures. But reality is, when they want to build the orphanage in the church, someone comes and drop $1 million. See, subconsciously, boom, the level goes up. Trust me, I am from that same type of family. My dad gave his church a whole building, and he was made the foundation pillar, front row seat. So in principle, yeah, they talk, oh, everyone is equal, this, that is, on the pulpit, everyone is equal. In reality, it's a different ballgame.
Victor,
I do agree with you, Victor, on something. Just one second, because, for example, people who say, like, I want to help people, I want to serve people. Yes, but if you are not rich and you don't have those privileges, you can't help people.
Oh, yeah.
And that is
You can be the usher. Yeah. You can be the
thank
usher.
you, because I hear what you're saying there, Victor. But Carla, if you can read these comments as we round up, please.
Sasha says 19th. So yes, you were right there, Victor. Well done. Points go to you today. 19th century, the sociological analysis is born during that period in Europe. Thank you for clarifying that, Sasha. And Dr. Akram Imar says values, principles, and practices are more important than classifying classes.
And thank you for that. Now, from my own personal experience, being in the military, I was basically an infantry, and then they found out I had a degree, and they said, "Oh, you must be clever. You should be an officer." No, you know my academic standard is not the best, but because of a piece of paper, I was told I should be an officer. So those are pros, and those are that's a pro. And obviously cons are where people look at you, make assumptions. Oh, he's brought up in this area, or he's from this, and he's like that, or even the way you're dressed. There's even doing an Uber driver job. I wear a tracksuit because it's very comfortable. I'm sitting down for many, many hours driving, rather than if I have jeans on or suit, it would be very uncomfortable. I'm not a chauffeur driver in that sense, but there's a tier even in the Uber world, in the passenger hire vehicle sense. But it's been interesting today. Great debate. Before I go back over to my co-hosts and they can introduce their podcast, I just want to say thank you to Jamal, Ida, it's nice to have you back. George, of course, we see you there, and Sasha, our committed follower, and Dr. Akram. And yes, that is it. Now we will be back. This is our last episode for our last season. If you can put the date up, please. And we will be back on the 25th of April. We're taking a break, a well-deserved break. We've been going for over a year, more or less non-stop. And we just need to take that break to review and come back. And we're going to be doing seasons from then on in. Follow us on our social media, on our Instagram, our Facebook, for latest updates and news to what we will be doing. We thank you greatly for your support over this year plus. It's much, much appreciated. And in the meanwhile, you can always contact us on the social media about any topics you will be interested to have us discuss with us, because you are part of us in that sense. The aim was today, it's just a general chit chat, just to allow people to reflect on who they are and who other people are and where they're going in life. It was nothing too heavy like we've been doing about the metaverse, but I'm sure we'll be back into that in the new seasons, Matilda. But back to the co-host, if you just introduce yourself for the podcast, please. Starting with Paula.
Yes, so I'm the host of the podcast, Women in Stories podcast. You can check the podcast on different platforms, iTunes, Spotify. So tune in for a new season. Over to you, Carla.
And I'm the host of the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast, which is a podcast about education and well-being. And we've got a couple more comments. I'm going to do those before I pass over to Matilda. Sasha says, you need classification to understand how a group is interacting. It's just logical analysis. And Dr. Akram Imar says, Matilda's words are realistic if she replaces the term class by level. So over to you, Matilda.
I think she's frozen. Victor, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think Matilda is frozen. Yes. I'm Victor Osio. I'm the host of the Diaspora Entrepreneurs podcast. And you can find my podcast on YouTube, Diaspora Entrepreneurs, on all podcast platforms, Diaspora Entrepreneurs. Hope to see you guys. And see you new.
And as Matilda's screen is frozen, Matilda is Coffee with Matilda, and I know it can be found on all major platforms. Myself is Simon with Taxi Chronicles, where I interview people as they get into the taxi and they share their innermost secrets and their traits and their skills. And I also do Africa Investor Stories, where I interview people from around the world who have invested in Africa and they share their realistic experience, and instead of hearing the prejudiced rhetoric of the BBC and Sky News, etc., CNN. But we wish you well. And we look forward to having you back on the 25th of April. Like we said, stay tuned. Goodbye.
And
we've done you, Matilda.